Bloodletting, practiced since around 3000 BC by Sumerians and Egyptians, became widespread in Greece and Rome and remained popular through medieval and Renaissance Europe. Healers, and later barbers, thought our bodies were full of four basic substances: yellow bile, black bile, phlegm and blood. They believed these had to be balanced for good health. Having too much blood was often a diagnosis for fevers, headaches, sadness and plagues. So they drained blood via leeches, lancets or cupping. Patients often lost large amounts of blood. Survival was seen as proof of effectiveness, while deaths were blamed on insufficient bleeding. Overbleeding caused anemia, shock, and heart failure. It contributed to George Washington's death in 1799 after 40% of his blood was removed for a sore throat. The sickest patients were often drained the most. Chopines were platform shoes worn from 15th century Venice to 17th century Spain by noblewomen and courtesans. Made of wood or cork, they could reach over 20 inches high and were used to keep dresses out of mud while showing wealth. Their height often made walking impossible without one or two attendants for support. They were highly unstable, causing frequent falls, snapped ankles, and broken bones. In a time before antibiotics or X-rays, that was a problem. Open or compound fractures often led to gangrene, sepsis, or infection, resulting in slow, agonizing deaths. Long skirts increased tripping risks, and some falls were severe enough to reportedly cause miscarriages. Repeated accidents led to a law limiting the height to 3 inches, but that was ignored. Tapeworm diets. In the 19th century, weight loss trends led women to swallow tapeworm eggs, sold as pills, promoted as a beauty secret from opera singers. The parasite would supposedly eat calories for easy weight loss. The worms could grow up to 30 feet, leading to malnutrition, internal blockages, and sometimes affecting the brain, causing meningitis, epilepsy, or dementia. After reaching a desired weight, people would try to kill the worm with a pill and pass it out of the body, which could cause serious complications. If this failed, doctors would use a metal tube with bait inserted through the mouth to extract it, a method that could cause choking. But people also died from seizures, infections like peritonitis, or perforated intestines. Shrovetide Football from medieval England was a chaotic village game where unlimited players on opposing teams tried to move a pig's bladder across fields, streets and rivers to goals at each end of a town. No rules except no murder. The sport drew large crowds for betting and spectacle. Matches often caused broken bones, stabbings, tramplings, and occasional drownings. Kings like Edward II banned it in 1314 after fatalities. It declined further once the 1835 Highway Act prohibited football on public roads. Modern versions are still played under safer rules. Crinolines were wide hoop skirts worn in the 19th century, supported by cage-like frames made of steel and horsehair. They quickly spread across Europe and were worn by women of all classes. Bulky and restrictive, they made sitting or walking through doors difficult, but they were also highly dangerous. Strong winds could lift the skirts or knock wearers off balance, and the wide frames often got caught in carriage wheels. But the biggest risk was fire. The fabric easily ignited from candles, fireplaces, or burning coals. At their peak, conflagrations caused an average of 3 deaths per week. Oscar Wilde's half-sisters died from burns after they went too close to an open flame. An 1863 church fire in Santiago, Chile killed thousands. Although flame-resistant fabrics existed, they were unpopular. The Cuckoo Game. During the First Indochina War, some French foreign legionnaires came up with their own twisted version of Russian roulette, calling it Cuckoo. In a completely dark room, 2 soldiers faced off, one armed with a loaded revolver, usually 6 shots, the other unarmed. The unarmed man started the game by shouting "Cuckoo" and quickly moved to a new spot. The armed soldier got 1 shot. If he missed, they kept going until the cylinder was empty. If in the end the unarmed player was still not hurt, he was declared the winner. The game never really became popular. After the first soldiers were wounded or killed, their officers got wind of it and banned the game. Belladonna Eye Drops. In Renaissance Italy, women used eye drops made from the belladonna plant to make pupils bigger for a seductive look, a beauty trend that spread across Western Europe. But belladonna, or deadly nightshade, is highly toxic. It could cause temporary blindness, increased heart rate, and eye irritation, sometimes convulsions, permanent blindness, heart failure, and in severe cases, death by shutting down vital body functions such as breathing, sweating, and heartbeat. Tobacco smoke enemas were used in 18th century Europe and America to revive drowning victims, or treat constipation by blowing smoke into the rear with bellows or pipes. Inspired by Native American practices and promoted by doctors, the method caused burns, perforations, and nicotine poisoning. Fatalities included a 1774 London case from overdose, and during cholera outbreaks, overuse led to deadly heart arrhythmias. Footbinding originated in China around the 10th century. It aimed to create lotus feet, no longer than 4 inches, considered highly desirable. The practice involved breaking and curling toes under the sole, then tightly wrapping them for years, permanently deforming the feet. Girls as young as 5 were subjected to it to enforce discipline and societal norms. The practice caused extreme pain, limited mobility, and lifelong disability. Many women suffered ulcerations, infections, gangrene, and in severe cases, amputations or death from sepsis, as the infection worked its way into the bloodstream. Nearly half of Chinese women were affected between the 10th and 19th centuries. The practice declined in the 20th century, officially banned in 1949, though some rural communities continued to use it. Mercury hats. In the 18th and 19th centuries, felt hat makers used mercury nitrate to process fur and inhaled the vapors, leading to chronic mercury poisoning known as Mad Hatter disease. This led to tremors, muscle weakness, headaches, irregular heartbeat, gum inflammation, memory loss, and in severe cases, hallucinations, dementia, and kidney failure. Prolonged exposure was often fatal, wrecking thousands in places like Danbury, Connecticut. Trepanation, practiced since 5000 BC across Europe, Siberia, China, and the Americas, involved drilling holes in the skull to treat headaches, seizures, intracranial pressure, epilepsy, blood clots, mental illness, or to expel evil spirits. The procedure was extremely dangerous, causing infections, brain damage, sepsis, and hemorrhage. Archaeological evidence shows around a 50% mortality rate, but voluntary trepanation persisted into modern times, performed by people interested in enhancing mental power and well-being. Trial by ordeal was a legal trend used from ancient Mesopotamia to 13th century medieval Europe. It determined the innocence of criminals through supposed divine intervention when evidence was lacking. Suspects carried hot irons, plunged hands into boiling water to fish out a ring, or walked over burning plowshares. Popular in courts and churches, it spread across cultures like Anglo-Saxon England. Many died from burns, infections, or shock, leading the Catholic Church to ban the practice in 1215, realizing survival rates were low. The father killer collars. In the Edwardian era, men of all classes wore ultra-stiff, high, detachable collars up to 5 inches tall, starched with rice or celluloid as a status symbol, and so they didn't have to change their shirt every day. But the collars could restrict blood flow to the brain and compress the windpipe, causing fainting, asphyxiation, or ruptured blood vessels. Fatalities included cases like John Cruzy in 1888, who choked to death after falling asleep drunk on a Baltimore park bench. His head tilted forward, the collar blocked his windpipe. Others fainted into traffic or waterways. Human cannonball acts were popular in circuses or fairgrounds from the late 1800s in the US, UK, France, and Germany. Performers were launched from cannons via explosives, compressed air, or springs. The acts later spread to Canada, Australia, and parts of Latin America and were staples of American circuses like Barnum and Bailey. But miscalculations, misfires, bad landings, and failed nets caused repeated serious injuries and multiple deaths. Pioneer Zazzle broke her back, missing the net with Barnum's Circus, and in 2011 Matt Cranch died when his safety net collapsed. Hot irons. From the 4th century BC through the 12th century, physicians like Hippocrates treated hemorrhoids with hot irons to cauterize tissue. Patients were held down and told to scream to make the tissue protrude. Primitive tools often stuck to the skin and weren't hot enough, causing extreme pain instead of cauterizing. The practice led to severe burns, infections, shock, and sometimes death. Arsenic dieting was common in Victorian England and Central Austria in the 1800s. It involved taking small doses of arsenic, often in pills, to lose weight and appear thin, pale, and energetic, under the false belief it boosted metabolism. Sometimes the poison wasn't disclosed and people often exceeded doses for faster results. Yes, people did lose weight, get clearer skin, and become more alert at first, but that was caused by their body desperately trying to survive. But over time, the highly toxic arsenic caused cancer, skin lesions, organ failure, and heart problems. The trend of using lead-based cosmetics to whiten the skin goes back to ancient Greece, China, and Rome, but a makeup called Venetian ceruse got really popular in the 16th to 19th centuries. This paste, made from vinegar, water, and white lead, was used to make the skin paler and signify wealth. Popularized by Queen Elizabeth I, it covered imperfections, but exposed users to chronic lead poisoning. Tummy pain, nausea, hair loss, headaches, anemia, and high blood pressure were standard. Severe cases caused paralysis, mental damage, organ failure, and death. The skin often blistered, peeled, and scarred, leading users to apply more of it. As seen with Countess Maria Coventry, heavy use is believed to have contributed to Queen Elizabeth's fatal blood infection. Electrotherapy devices. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, an electrotherapy craze spread across Europe and the United States, with devices like the Pulvermacher galvanic belt, vests, and pads sold as cures for impotence, weakness, paralysis, or rheumatism. These gadgets passed electrical currents through the body using batteries or hand-cranked generators. Widely advertised in newspapers and catalogs, they frequently cause burns, skin damage, infections, and heart rhythm issues. Prolonged or improper use led to collapses, severe injuries, and rare deaths, especially when applied to the chest, spine, or genitals. Train crash events became a form of entertainment in the late 1800s. Obsolete locomotives were set on a collision course and abandoned at full speed while crowds watched. These events drew tens of thousands of spectators, often standing dangerously close with little safety control. Debris from the impact, like metal and stones, could fly at high speeds and cause serious injury or instant death. Promoters sold tickets and built viewing stands, but crowds ignored barriers and ran toward the wreckage for souvenirs even after explosions. A major example was the 1896 crash at Crush in Texas, which attracted around 40,000 people. When the trains collided, their boilers exploded, sending shrapnel into the crowd, killing at least 2 people and injuring dozens. Such events continued until the 1930s. The wet look. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, especially in France, Britain, and the US, women wore thin muslin dresses and often dampened them in water to make the fabric cling to the body, creating a more revealing look and emphasizing they didn't wear underwear. Influenced by French laws limiting heavy clothing for the upper class, this wet look exposed women to cold temperatures. The soaked fabric led to frequent pneumonias, and some hygienists linked the trend to an 1803 influenza outbreak in Paris, calling it muslin disease. Doom corsets. From the 16th to 19th centuries, tight-laced corsets to create an extreme hourglass figure by compressing the waist were very popular among upper-class women in Europe and America. But this restricted breathing, caused frequent fainting, and pushed internal organs out of place, leading to indigestion, internal bleeding, lung issues, and long-term damage. Broken ribs and distorted body shapes were common, especially with later designs that also affected affected the spine and hips. In extreme instances, steel corset bones rubbed together to create sharp edges. In the 1903 case of Mary E. Halliday, metal fragments were found embedded in her heart, leading to her death. Radium health products. From the 1910s to 30s, radium was marketed as a miracle ingredient in drinks, cosmetics, toothpaste, and products like Radithor, promising energy and health. Popular in the US and Western Europe, these products were believed to literally give you a glowing complexion, as they sometimes glowed in the dark. However, radium is highly radioactive, and ingestion caused severe poisoning. Users suffered lesions, anemia, tooth loss, rotting jawbones, facial tumors, and internal decay. Eben Byers, a wealthy US industrialist and golfer, drank around 1,000 bottles of Radithor to fix his arm pain. He suffered jaw necrosis and eventually died from bone cancer. The practice of pole sitting dates back to early 5th century Christian ascetics like Saint Simeon Stylites, who lived atop pillars with little food to achieve spiritual purity, remaining there for up to 36 years until death. The trend returned in 1920s America as a stunt, popularized by Alvin Kelly, who sat on poles for publicity in Philadelphia, and set records like 49 days. The activity was dangerous due to exposure, sleep deprivation, and lack of nutrition. The fad declined during the Great Depression, but there's even a recorded death in 1974 when professional pole sitter Richard Blandy fell to his death after a trailer reversed into his platform and it collapsed. Mummy powder. From the 12th to 18th centuries, mumia, made from ground Egyptian mummies, was widely used in Europe and the Arab world as a cure for epilepsy, bleeding, or headaches. The practice came from a mistranslation of the Arabic term mumia, a natural tar-like substance used in Persian medicine to treat wounds, bruises, and fractures. It was confused with preserved mummies, leading to the belief that ancient bodies held restorative power. The powder was consumed directly or mixed into tinctures and became popular among elites, including Charles II of England. High demand led to tomb looting and counterfeit products made from recently deceased bodies. These mixtures could contain contaminants, degraded organic material, and occasionally toxic substances, posing risks of illness or poisoning with repeated use. The practice declined by the 18th century as medical understanding improved, though it persisted into the early 20th century.